What's up? Welcome to another one. I just felt like coming on. There's no consistency here necessarily. I do this when I feel like it. I suppose if this becomes a thing, I don't know. I'll have a day of the week maybe that I do this. I want to have something that I do like weekly. I even thought about maybe doing like Taylor Tuesdays or something like that, just because it sort of has that rhythm to it. I think they call that alliteration, right? Like Bugs Bunny, Roadrunner, Taylor Tuesdays, etc. You get the picture. Yeah, I'd like to do something a little more consistently, but I'm kind of an impulsive or spontaneous guy. I don't know which one sounds better. I think both are accurate. I can be spontaneous, but I can also be impulsive. I feel like impulsive is a little bit messy in a way, whereas spontaneous is kind of open minded and go with the flow of things. So I don't know if those words really get mixed up too often in the real world, but they probably do. And I think that I'm both. Although, God, do I really roll with the punches or not? I feel like I'm kind of a control freak. I mean, that's not totally true. Well, one reason I don't like hanging out with groups of people a lot of the time is because you always reach a point in the day where different people in the group want to do different things, and then you all have to come to some kind of agreement on what to do or where to go or where to eat. And I don't want to just eat pizza and grab beers every time. So I'm just like, you know what, I'll go do my own thing. And I straight up will. I'll go do my own thing. I'll literally like leave the group and go on a jog or something like that. Um, just silly, but I feel ridiculous or crazy going and doing something that I don't actually feel like doing just to be with people, you know? I feel like people compromise too much on what they actually want just to not feel lonely, you know? And it's not even that they feel lonely. It's like I feel like people think that they're being judged just because they're spending time alone as opposed to spending time with people, right? Because I've felt that judgment, and it's made me feel pressure to spend time with people instead of trying to maybe just do what I actually want to do, even if it means being alone. But sometimes you just want to be around people. Every now and then I find that I avoid hanging out with people so often. And I'm really just talking about groups here. I see friends one on one or something like that, or I call people relatively often. So I have a social life. I'm just very selective about who it's with and what we're doing. Um, but yeah, with groups, it's just my time with people in like a social kind of extrovert context is very few and far between. And generally, it's so few and far between that every now and then I'm like, wow, this is actually nice, you know? And then I might do it again soon sometimes, and I'm like, yeah, no, actually, that's too much. That's too much. So it really depends. And, you know, I think if I had the perfect group of people or something, I'd probably hang out with them a lot more often. But I don't know. That's what happens. You get a little older, maybe, and, you know, your life just kind of takes off and has its own direction. So, I mean, even just finding time to hang out with somebody one on one, you know, it's difficult. You got to have like the planets aligned and everything just for your schedules to work out. And then, I don't know, maybe you plan to do something outside and then the weather's not good, so you end up rescheduling like 2 months later. Isn't that crazy? How that happens? I remember, I don't know, when I was like 16 or something, you just meet up. Didn't matter what you did, you just meet up. It's like you had nothing better to do except hang out or something. And now there's like a lot of better things to do. At least it feels that way. I don't know. It's just interesting that the difference in priority to just hang out with each other, and then the irony of feeling lonely or isolated too. And I know that's like a universal thing, but you know, I kind of bring that on myself sometimes too. But everybody does. We've all got funny balances in our lives that we need to work out. And sometimes I think everything is fine and you just get in your own head. But I think if you spend too much time by yourself, you get in your head too much. And I think if you spend too much time with other people, maybe other people get in your head too much. Or you just don't spend enough time with yourself, so you're not really in touch with yourself. You never really have the silence or the lack of stimulus to really just have a moment to yourself and be like, whoa, this is actually how I feel. This is what it's like in my head, you know? So I think I get plenty of that time, but you can also get into the habit of kind of avoiding that time or maybe distracting yourself in a way. If you're alone a lot, you kind of just find ways to distract yourself. Maybe, you know, dumb stuff like maybe wasting a lot of time on YouTube or the computer or something. Whereas the opposite would be maybe going into your backyard and just meditating for like 30 minutes. You know, that would be the opposite. So I don't know. I try to do a little bit of that, and it's always nice when I get to, but I just, I don't know. Feel like you don't have the time to meditate because you're just sitting there kind of doing nothing. But at the same time, some of that time can really help recalibrate yourself. So I wouldn't underrate it, but I also don't prioritize it enough. So Hypocrite, a little bit. Um, Geez, this chair doesn't scoot up quite perfectly. I'm on carpet here, so my wheels, like, they sit into the ground and they sink just a little bit after a while, and then you want to scoot like an inch, but they just keep scooting back because the chair keeps sinking back into that same spot. It's really annoying. Yeah, just thought I'd rant about that for about 2 seconds. I never got pissed off about that before, but I did right now. Usually if I'm on the computer, I'm just in the same position, like typing, so I'm not thinking about it. But this is different. I'm not going to have my hands on the keyboard and the mouse here because I'm just talking. This is where my camera is, and this is where I do my reactions, so I just figured this is where I'll do my little podcast type of thing as well. As you can see, maybe I didn't make my bed in the background. There's these little poles right here. I have a folding couch. I just decided to have this one room kind of be a few things, and slowly but surely it ended up being several things, I guess. I feel like this room can kind of shift around to be better suited for certain purposes. And the only issue with that is that you're in the same room for a lot of different things that you do. So it'd be cool to just open up different rooms in the house for different purposes. But then you have all these rooms that are specified for something. So I don't know what the solution to that is. Nothing's perfect, man. Some people rent an office space, and I'm just like, why would I pay thousands of dollars a month just to have a separate place? I guess some people find justification in doing that. But I know a lot of people that do that, and they just run out of money to do whatever it is they were doing in their office space. That happens all the time. Happens all the time. So I'm just like, why would you ever do that? Do people just think, oh, I have a business idea and I'm going to rent an office space or something? Is that it? Because I feel like if you can do it smaller scale, you should. Until you can't, and then when you can't, then maybe move up or something. But I don't know. Everyone's got a different philosophy. I mean, that's life, you know? Everyone's got a different philosophy, and some of them work for them and some of them don't work for them, you know? Like, you can't just follow one path to success. It's always, there might be some truths that are generally truthful or accurate, but there's a lot of stuff that's, only going to work for some people or only going to work for you, and I think you really have to embrace that. And then there's also the case where there's a lot of things that could work for you. It's kind of like a relationship. There's probably quite a few people that you could maybe marry or something like that, or have a healthy relationship and kids and all that, but yeah, to think that there's only one person in the entire world or something like that, that's crazy, right? I think that's crazy. Man, what a different world now. If you think back, I mean, if you think back to what we were told 700 years or so was like, the world was so much smaller. You probably just lived in your town, and I mean, how would you even get across to the other side of the country or whatever it was at that time, I mean, not America, because America's a young country. We've only been around for a few hundred years, but I mean, gosh, did everyone just get around on boats and horseback or something like that? I mean, those were the faster ways of getting around, at least. No airplanes, no cars. Just imagine how much smaller the world would be if if it just took forever to get anywhere, I mean, it's almost village-like. I feel like having horseback as a mode of transportation is still so much closer to living in the village era of humanity than the era that we live in now, where we have cars and we have planes. And not too long after cars and planes, I feel like we had the internet that brought a whole other level of connectivity. Yeah, it's crazy. That kind of circles into the whole idea about just one person being the right person for you. Well, now you could meet anybody. You can just fly somewhere, and most people speak English. I mean, not everywhere, but it's the most commonly spoken language, is my point. Yeah, there's just so many people, and there's so many. I mean, most of the people you meet, you probably don't know, right? It didn't used to be like that. Most of the people that you saw probably lived in your village or your town or your general area, but now you just see new people all the time everywhere, and maybe you never talk to them. Or maybe you do and you'll never see them again. It's kind of weird. But that's how it is. I had a friend I was talking to. Maybe he's watching this podcast, but was it him? I don't know. If it's you, it's you. And maybe you should text me. Talking about how like humans were never meant to be as connected as we were, or as we are now, or be exposed to as many social circumstances as we are now. And I get that, but we also came to the same agreement in the conversation that humans, well, it's almost as if this wouldn't have happened if it wasn't meant to happen, right? Because I think the desire to connect is inherently very deep in just being human. You want to connect. Humans had the desire to create language, and now we use language to communicate, and now we have the internet to communicate. Like, it's just, our desire to be able to communicate is so strong. It's one of the primary characteristics of being human, I would say, but also just being a living organism. Every life form seems to find some way of communicating, whether it's some kind of hormonal transaction or something like that that communicates some kind of message and a response, to animals and their weird little dances and mating calls and all that stuff. I mean, I suppose that stuff is more basic, but even on a primal level, the desire or maybe the need to communicate is so important. But I think with humans, we're kind of obsessed with it. So, yeah. I mean, look at me. I'm just talking to myself into a microphone, and it feels like I'm not, because I have this idea that other people are going to listen or something. And I suppose some people will. But yeah, what's wrong with just talking to yourself also? I've had that thought. What's wrong with just talking to yourself? You got to be there for yourself, right? People say that. I remember I talk about how I'm a musician sometimes here, and I remember when I used to do a lot of instrumental stuff. What really got me into music, I think I grew up on I'll give you a quick story here. I grew up kind of on classic rock, and then I guess a little bit of the pop music at the time as well. So a little bit of what was current, and then what my parents maybe grew up on a bit. And then I just carried that for so long. I always loved rock music. And as I was growing up, rock music was still relevant for a long time, right? I think rock music maybe started becoming more popular in the 50s or something. So you had like 50 years of rock music kind of sounding similar, right? I mean, obviously that's an oversimplification, but if you just sort of mash 50 years of rock music together, it all kind of sounds the same. Like you have loud-ish, powerful drums and guitar and somebody singing loudly or yelling and all that. So you can generalize pop or rock music into a general sound. And I feel like in the last decade of rock, when it was still relevant, maybe around 2000 to 2010, something like that, still relevant. I know it's not dead. It's not dominating the mainstream music anymore. And it was for so long, right? I feel like it was somewhere between 2000 and 2010 that you could tell that it was dropping off a bit. Maybe it's before that. Because I imagine that Snoop Dogg became really popular in a mainstream way probably in the 90s or something sometime. And you even had rap artists, MC Hammer and stuff. They came up in the 80s and stuff. But I don't think there was anything like that in the 70s. So maybe things started to change a bit in the 80s and then the 90s. But then in the 2000s, I really think that was kind of the last era, because rap had started to evolve into something. Electronic music started to come out and be more prevalent. And rock music had been around so long, maybe it was just time for it to kind of change into something else. But yeah, pop music just started to sound different. I feel like at the end of the rock era, you had Blink-182, you even had Smash Mouth or something. You had Linkin Park, and they were kind of a hybrid of this sort of digital sound with rock. They had this cold digital sound that I liked. I mean, that was their sound. It was really cool. If I listen back to their music, I don't really care for a lot of the lyrical content. And I feel a little bad saying that because I know the lead singer committed suicide. I don't know why, depression and whatever. So, but despite all that, just my opinion on the music and looking back on it and whatever, that's my opinion on it. Not trying to be insensitive, obviously. But yeah, that was kind of the end of it. It'd be interesting to really try to trace it back to when the moment really changed forever or something. I feel like trap had something to do with it, because now you really just don't hear any rock on the radio. You hear electronic music of some kind, from trap to some kind of electronic dance type music. All these genre names get so weird, but some kind of electronic pop and some kind of trap music, and that seems to occupy almost everything on the radio. And then every now and then you might get your occasional Adele type of artist that seems to have a more classical feel, but it's usually super modernized or something. And I know that there's a little bit of rock on there, but I'm really, my point is that I'm comparing it to a time when rock some variation of rock was very dominant on the radio, and I just feel like it was like that for 50 or 60 years, and then things started to shift, and now there's really hardly any. But my whole point is that I grew up in a time when rock was still relevant, and with parents that grew up on it as well, but in a different time. And I just really wanted to play guitar, and I played Rock Band. I think it was Rock Band, or it was they had Guitar Hero and they had Rock Band, right? And Rock Band was basically Guitar Hero, but you had drums and other stuff, a microphone as well, maybe some other instrument. I'm not sure. I wasn't really into it, but I played 1 or 2 days, and I was really into it. And I think I was 15 or something at the time, maybe a little younger. I don't know, but I felt something when I played that. I felt the reward of hitting the notes, and the notes would play and the song would go on, and I felt something, and it really created an intrigue to actually start guitar, because it's not like Guitar Hero or Rock Band was an easy game. It wasn't. It's not an easy game, but it's also not real. You're not really playing the instrument, but it kind of felt like I was. So I felt enough to feel like I want to play the real instrument, and so I did. I followed through on that very quickly. I just immediately wanted to get a guitar. I think I bought it from some dude that I knew that at a local skate park in my town. And yeah, I kind of just want to shout out names because I remember the names of these people. The thing is, I watch like Joe Rogan sometimes, and he'll shout out the name of some guy from his high school or something like that, and I'm like, geez, that's crazy, because Joe Rogan's, the biggest podcast ever, and he's just saying this dude's name, and I kind of wonder, is that guy just gonna get a ton of attention now? But I never feel like looking that guy's name up and everything like that. But I suppose it could happen. So I guess I'll leave the names out for now, because what is the point of saying the name right now? There's no point. So I'll leave it out. But it was some dude at a skate park, and he sold me some Fender Squire knockoff guitar, and it was black and white, and he had little X's on it, like a typical cheesy emo kid might. Just X's on the white part of the guitar. Electrical tape. And I think he might have had the frets numbered or something. I don't really remember that well, but I think I took the X's off pretty quickly. But I bought the guitar from him for like $100 or $90 or something, and that was it, dude. After that, I was in. I remember just understanding that you can push a string down on the frets and then a note happens. I was like, oh, that's how that works. It's so cool. And it sounded like the music in a way that I listened to. And I just wanted to be able to do that better. I wanted to get better at recreating the sounds that I liked so much. So I started learning about power chords, right? And I just started learning songs after that. I started learning basic songs. And it kind of worked out for me. There were a lot of songs that I wanted to learn, and it just so happened that some of those songs were kind of easy to play. Some of them weren't easy to play, but I also didn't really know any better. So I just kind of tried anyway. So I think had I gone to a standard guitar teacher or something, I might have had a very different trajectory or path of learning how to play guitar, but I never really did anything like that. I just picked it up on myself and learned via the internet. And everything just kind of took off from there. I did that for a while, and then eventually I stopped learning songs. I felt like I knew enough to start doing my own music. Like a year into learning guitar, I learned music production software, and those two things just kind of went hand in hand. I started to write parts for drums and synthesizers, pianos and whatever instruments I could program essentially. And sometimes guitar would be a part of that, and sometimes it wouldn't. So music was really fun for me. And that's how I got into it. My whole music obsession or career, whatever you want to call it, all kind of started with Rock Band. It's a funny story, although I'm sure there's other people out there that have a similar story. Yeah. I just felt like Rock Band is a hard game. I could get good at playing Rock Band, or I could get good at playing the real thing. Like, which one's going to mean more to me, right? So obviously I picked up the real thing, and that was a good decision. I remember my friends that got me into that game too. Yeah, shout outs to them. Again, not naming names here, but I do remember those guys as well. Still in touch with both of them. One more so than the other guy, but I think I'll see him one of these days. Been trying to. So busy with school stuff. Yeah. So that's like a little bit of my life story. So far I just come on here and I don't really know what I'm going to say, so it's cool to just be able to snap into some Monologue. I like it. It's good for me. It's good for you too, maybe. Let's see. I'll tell you something random. I've been getting into baking banana bread recently. I've always hated baking. Something that happens every now and then, like maybe you're, at least for me, I remember that this would be a thing, like I'm dating some girl, and then the activity comes up like, oh, let's bake something. And I was always that guy, like, I hate baking. Baking takes so long, and I just hate it. The whole house gets hot because of the oven, and it takes so long to prepare, you know? It's like I'm hungry. I don't want to spend 40 minutes. Well, say this, if you don't have all the ingredients at your house, you're going to spend maybe an hour going out doing groceries to get the ingredients after you pick an ingredient or pick a recipe, right? You're going to pick a recipe and then you're going to go to the grocery store and then you come back. And by the time you're back at the house, best case scenario, honestly, let's say it took about an hour to an hour and a half. Now, now you got to put everything together. You got to prepare the recipe, and that can take who knows how long depending on what you're making. It could take somewhere between 20 minutes to 45 minutes is probably realistic. So let's call it 40 minutes. I feel like that's not the average there, but I feel like that is also pretty realistic. So you're at least 2 something hours into this endeavor. And then by the time you get your batter or whatever it is done, and sometimes you have to do like a 2-part recipe. Sometimes you have to do like this one step and then you got to cook something and then you got to do another step. There's some baking recipes that take like 3 hours, which is insane. God, who has the time for that? Especially when you're hungry. So yeah, you prepare all the food after you get the recipe and stuff, and then you got to wait for it in the oven for like 30 or 40, 50 minutes. You also got to preheat the oven, but you preheat it while you're preparing the recipe or something like that. So anyway, I always had a bad attitude about baking stuff, and I still kind of do, to be honest. I don't like the idea of baking. Oh, I was fidgeting with something and I dropped it, so I gotta pick it up here. But yeah, just never was a fan of baking. Girls always seem to be into it, and I'm always that guy that's like, no, I want to cook something fast. I'm good at cooking stuff fast, and I am good at cooking stuff fast. I'm not a bad cook. I just don't want to spend a lot of time baking. I'm kind of a stovetop guy. And about a year and a half ago, I actually got an air fryer, and that changed the game for me, man. Air fryers are really wonderful, wonderful, because you can get a lot of that the quality of cooking something in the oven, but it's almost as fast as a microwave. It's great. I love it. It's literally just hot air blasting and circulating around really quickly in a smaller chamber. Ovens take a long time because this huge thing has to heat up, but the air fryer's, I don't know, the size of a microwave or maybe half of it. So you can prepare like a single serving meal very quickly in about 5 or 6 minutes in an air fryer. So I love an air fryer. You should have one. Everyone should have one. It should be like a household item. I bet if Americans had air fryers, they would like the average, I don't know, just the average obesity rate or whatever in America would probably go down if everybody just had an air fryer. Like literally just put an air fryer in everybody's house. Watch the health of people just improve magically somehow. And maybe everybody saves time because they'll stop using their damn ovens. I don't know. Where was I going? Oh yeah. I started baking. That's my whole point. I'm baking banana bread now. And yeah, this girl I'm seeing, maybe she's watching this podcast. Yeah, she kind of got me into it. And it was a seed that was planted a while ago. Oh, banana bread. It's, something to do with the really overripe bananas. I think I looked in her fridge one time and I'm like, what are these black bananas doing in your fridge? Because I always thought that means they're rotten, they're trash, right? They're like way, way past edible. But yeah, she told me she keeps them around for banana bread. And maybe a couple months later or something, I saw that she was making banana bread, or maybe she gave me some. But if you guys know me, you guys know that I'm sort of a keto guy. So if anything's made with like flour, regular wheat flour or something, I'm probably not going to eat it unless I'm cheating. And if I'm eating wheat flour, I'm cheating bad. So months after that, I kind of got around to the idea of, what about banana bread but with coconut flour or something, because that's keto. And we did that. Actually, almond flour, the same girl that got me into banana bread. We did it with almond flour, I think, the first time, and it was kind of sludgy. Although looking back, I think maybe we didn't let it cool long enough, but also almond flour is just gonna not absorb moisture as well. I used coconut flour the second time, and that turned out really well. So trial and error. But long story short, I made banana bread like 5 days ago, and then I made it one day ago, and then I made some today. And the banana bread I made, I think, what did I say yesterday? I think I ate almost all of that yesterday. And then I baked banana bread again today, and I ate almost all of it today. And these are like, I mean, the banana bread I'm making looks like almost an entire loaf of bread. It's not quite as high. It's maybe half as high as a loaf of bread, but it's about the same width as a loaf of bread. So I've eaten almost two entire pans of banana bread the last 2 days. And these are the low calorie thing. Like I'm zesting it up. I'm putting chocolate in there. I'm putting it's keto chocolate, so keto chocolate. It's not a bunch of sugar or anything. Really, the only sugar in there is from the bananas, and it's like a fruit sugar. So I don't really feel that bad about that. But yeah, I put walnuts in there. I put pistachios in there. I mean, this thing was dense. It was dense. I had 4 bananas, 2 eggs, I think half a cup of coconut flour, and then some other things, and then I zested it up with some nuts. And yeah, ate almost the entire thing. And then I made another one with a little bit of different zest this time, and then almost again ate the entire thing. So it's just like I'm binging banana bread now. But the batter only takes maybe 10 minutes to make, which isn't very long, and the oven will preheat by then, and I can just leave it in there for 45 minutes, 50 minutes, something like that, and I can just chill. I'll do something else. So I wonder if my attitude about baking will turn around sometime in the near future. But yeah, you're not going to get me to put anything not keto in there. And I don't know if you're going to sell me on, I don't know, those recipes that just take like 5 hours. Isn't that Thanksgiving for some people? They have to preheat the oven and stuff a turkey, and then the turkey's in there and it takes like a week, I mean, not literally, but when you're 7 years old and you're at some family's house and time just takes forever to pass, it feels like the turkey just never cooks. And it feels like time never moves fast enough. So it's not like that these days, usually. I hear time keeps passing faster. That's kind of scary. Anyway, yeah. I have this theory about time and why when you get older that things look smaller. I have this theory and I think that I'm right. And I feel like I'm one of the only people to ever realize this. The dumbest answer out there that you'll hear from people, and this is what most people think, is that, oh, you're taller now and that's why everything looks smaller. And I'm thinking that's not it. Like you could literally just get a kid and put that kid on a ladder and ask him, hey, does that building, that huge like 100-story building, does that building look any smaller now? No, it's not going to look any smaller now. But for some reason, if you move from a town and you remember some big building and then you go back 10 years later and you look at it, wow, that building is so much smaller than I remember. It happened to me when I looked at roller coasters. I used to go to some amusement park that had some Six Flags, and they had a pretty big roller coaster. I imagine they all have pretty big roller coasters, but yeah, this one had one that I was always afraid of riding. And I was just a little kid then, but I had some friends that would want to go, and they were just so down to ride that. And I'm like, I'm not getting on that. That it terrified me. The idea of just getting on that roller coaster, it looked so huge. It looked so big. And I wonder how I would have felt had I gone on it when I was that young. If somebody just forced me to get on it, I wonder how that would have been for me. But I always chickened out. But as I got a little older, let's say like maybe 7 years or so passed. Since that last time at the amusement park when I was just a little kid, let's say 7 years passed or something. And in that 7 years, somewhere in there, I got really into mountain biking, and I got pretty good. Generally, honestly, if I was going to the mountain bike resorts, me and my crew were like the fastest guys. We were hitting the biggest jumps. We weren't professional or anything, but we built a bunch of spots and we were comfortable doing the big stuff. The big stuff, like the most advanced stuff on the trails, and we did everything out there. So we got pretty good, and the kind of stuff that I did on my bike sometimes was just legitimately, I felt like I was staring death in the face sometimes. I'm like, if I fall on this, that could be it. If I fall, best case scenario, I'm probably going to break like 6 bones and scratch up my very expensive bike a lot. And sometimes you're like, well, I'll recover, but my bike scratches will never recover, which is so toxic, right? If you're thinking that way, as a mountain biker, I feel like that's the beginning of the end for you in some way. And in a way it was for me, actually, because I cared so much about my bike and how it looked, and I was so into that. More so than I was into just the love of mountain biking. Like there was a time where I just loved mountain biking in such an innocent way. and I got really good, but I also got obsessed with how light my bike was and how good the bike looked and performed, that I started to care so much about that. Sometimes I wouldn't even want to ride my bike until like my new fork or whatever arrived, because I'm like, well, I don't want to ride my bike with this crappy fork. I'm waiting for my new one, you know? It's too bad that that happened. Happens to some people. That's probably just a life thing. You start obsessing over the aesthetics, and you don't love it for what you loved it for in the earlier times anymore, you know? So that happened to me. But yeah, anyway, God, just some of the things. I'll pull up pictures sometime for you guys just to show you some of the stuff that I did. And it was crazy. It was absolutely nuts. Looking back on some of that stuff is crazy. So anyway, I got used to doing really scary big stuff on my mountain bike. Like, it was fast, it was big, like big drops, big gaps, huge jumps and stuff, and huge consequences if you messed up, even just a little bit sometimes. Like, just, you know, being like half a foot off, you might really seriously get hurt. But I was always very careful, and I you know, I practiced a lot before I did the new big scary thing, just to make sure I wouldn't get hurt. But also just because I was kind of a chicken. I'm kind of a cautious guy. But anyway, 7 years, right? 7 years since I go to that Six Flags and I come back, I had been mountain biking a lot for some time. And by that time I'd grown quite a lot, and I'd done a lot of big and scary adrenaline rush things. And then I went back to that amusement park and I looked at those roller coasters, and I'm like, that's it? The thing is so tiny. How was I ever afraid of that? And I just got on it, and it was fun. It was peaceful for me. Like, literally the biggest roller coasters in this park. I'm talking like, I don't remember exactly, but I think like 100 and something foot drop from the top, which isn't really anything to scoff at. Everybody on the way down is screaming their brains out, having a good time, or maybe some are legitimately really terrified. I don't know. But I was on that roller coaster, and I just kind of closed my eyes and I relaxed, and I was like, on the free fall feeling, I was like, this is very relaxing, and everyone's screaming, and I was so relaxed, which sounds kind of psychopathic, but no, I knew the screams were mostly like people having a good time and no one's gonna get hurt. So it wasn't like some Joker Batman shit where you're relaxed when everyone else is terrified or something. Not like that. But yeah, my theory on why everything looks smaller when you get older and you look back at those places where things were big. I'll tell you that sometime. I don't want to give that away here just yet. This is only my second podcast. You guys aren't ready. But I'm pretty sure that I'm right. I'll share that idea sometime. Yeah. I have no idea how long I've been talking for. I should probably have a timer, because I feel like my podcasts should sort of have like a set amount of time where dialogue is happening, right? I shouldn't just have some that are 20 minutes long and have some that are like an hour long. I feel like that's not consistent enough. But I'm just starting out here. I don't even have a name for this thing. And I don't have like a schedule. I don't have a time of day that I do this. I don't have a time of day that I upload this. I don't have an amount a week that I upload this. I mean, I really don't have anything figured out for the podcast. Although I figured out a couple things. I said in my last one, which I haven't even uploaded yet, actually. I'm having this one, or I'm doing this one right now before I've even released the first one. So if anyone says something in the first one and then, you know, like, fix the lights or something, and then in the second one the lights are the same, it's because this one was recorded before that one was published. So there you go. Yeah, what was I saying? I got lights, and I got real studio lights, and I got a camera, which I already had. A nice camera. It would be perfectly good for podcasts, I think. And I just realized, like, am I really going to set up a camera and lights every time I just want to sit down and talk? You know, are people really going to come back to this video for better lighting and a better camera? I mean, it's about the dialogue, you know? And if I'm doing reaction stuff, I feel like I'm probably going to set it up this way anyway, right? I'm trying not to make this harder on myself, to just sit down and, you know, have it all ready to go. So yeah, who is this guy? There's this one dude on YouTube. He's like Penguin or something. I don't know who he is. He's not the biggest YouTuber or anyone, but he has a couple million subscribers or something, maybe even more by now. I don't know who he is. He's a really raunchy guy. I think he has long hair. Sometimes he wears a hat. I don't know. That dude's camera setup looks like crap, but he has a huge following. So, I mean, it's not really about the equipment so much. It's about the content. So yeah, I'll try to deliver on the content end of things, but if it's just me sitting down in front of a webcam or whatever, I mean, hey, I got a nice microphone, right? I got a nice microphone, so at least you guys can appreciate the textures of my vocals. What if I just talked real smooth all the time? Yeah, I could do that. I could talk real smooth and just have a warm cup of tea here. Maybe a little bit of milk in the tea. No sugar because I'm keto, but I might put some sweeteners in it. And I can just talk to you like this, like we're at a cafe or something, or maybe I'm a radio show host of a jazz station. We can do that too. We can do that too. I can't talk that fast if I'm going to talk that smooth, though. You gotta speak at the right pace for the tone of your voice. I don't know if that's true. I'm just saying stuff. But yeah, I got a nice microphone, and you're welcome. If you're gonna demand that I get a nicer camera and nicer lights, it's like, what are you doing, man? What are you doing? Don't make it harder for me. But yeah, if there's something you want to do and you obsess about the quality of the work to the point that it just becomes like a mountain you don't want to climb, then you're kind of getting in your own way. So yeah, start small, baby steps. There's a lot to be embraced and appreciated about baby steps. You ever hear about that rule of breaking your procrastination? Just tell yourself or force yourself to just do 1 minute of the assignment or whatever it is, or the task. And a lot of the times you'll end up doing a lot more than just the 1 minute. But if you don't want to, you don't have to. So it's kind of this negotiation trick that you do with yourself. If you don't want to do the dishes, it's like, well, just do 1 minute of dishes. That's fine. Just do 1 minute of dishes. And then once you're there doing the minute, because that's all you really imagine having to do, it's easy to get yourself to do it. You might end up doing more. It's very often the case that starting is the hardest part. So yeah, don't make it harder to start. Because if I looked at this podcast and thought, oh man, I can't start this until I figure out a theme and a title and I get lights and a camera and I find the angles and stuff, like what if I waited for all that to just essentially get down on a microphone and talk? And at least I have the most important part, I feel like, the microphone, right? What if I had a nice camera and a nice light and terrible microphone? That'd be the worst. So anyway, it is what it is for now. What if I call it that? It is what it is. I don't know. We'll see what I come up with as far as a name goes. So maybe I'll have figured that out by the time you see this, maybe not. But definitely leave me suggestions for a name in the comments, because I'm open to ideas, especially for my subscribers, because you guys know me a little bit and you know some of the content that I put out there, and maybe you guys are into the dialogue. So maybe you have some ideas that would resonate with you. I'm just curious what kind of ideas you would come up with. I might not like any of them, but it might give me ideas. So feel free to shout them out in the comments. All right. That's all for now. I actually have to use the restroom, so I'm going to call it right here. Yeah. It is 5:58 in the morning, by the way, and I hear the rain knocking on my gutters. It's doing that little tick, 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 tick thing, and it used to keep me up, but it doesn't bother me anymore, so I just kind of live with it. Yeah, it's raining. It's raining. It's a very rainy week, so it means very little or no tennis for me for a while, which means sad J.Steezy, but I'll figure something else out. Maybe I'll go running, or I'll work out, or I'll take it easy. Steezy will take it easy. I'll take it Steezy, because that's what I do. J.Steezy. All right. I'll see you guys in the next one and in the comments. Like and subscribe, etc., etc., etc. I got to use the bathroom, so I'm going to go. Super charming that I said that, but I'm just keeping it real with you guys. All right. I'll see you guys. Bye for now.